Welcome back, everybody, to the SOS Stacey on Sports podcast show. I'm sorry I've been off for like a month or so, been real busy, but I'm back on it. I am your host, of course, the next voice of sports, Stacey Carter II. And today I got a very special guest with me over here in LA, Mateo Navarette, NBA writer, avid Lakers fan. Welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you very much. Been watching a lot of Lakers this year, man. It's been an up and down year for a lot of teams, but the league's in an interesting place, you know. It feels like we haven't gotten the whole rhythm of the season going yet. I mean, we're in the season, but, you know, players are dropping out with COVID protocols and stuff, so I'm excited to get into it with you, man.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, people. We're going to talk about the NBA. The NBA is at that midpoint. We're going to give our mid-season report. We just came off an All-Star Day, not weekend day. What you think of the All-Star Day? How you think it went?
It was interesting. You know, we had it on one day of the year. Usually it's a whole 3-day event, but with wanting to contain all the events with COVID and everything, I see how they tried to compromise, you know, the owners, and they still want to make their money. They still want to have an event. I'm sure if Adam Silver, if it was up to him, he probably wouldn't have done it, but I think he was pressured by the owners and such. So thus it was one day. I thought the game itself was fun. Yeah. I thought the slam dunk contest was a little boring. You know, it's the same thing. We don't get like the big name guys anymore. If we could get like LeBron, a Zion, you know, some star caliber players like that, the dunk contest would be revitalized. To be fair, when we had Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine going at it, that was an amazing one.
Oh yeah, I still want the plays there.
Yeah, the 3-point shootout. You know, it's funny that was probably the best event because you had the back and forth between Conley and Curry, and it was kind of Curry hadn't done the 3-point shootout in a long time. I can't remember the last time, but you wonder, okay, now's the moment. Are you gonna, you know, act like the greatest 3-point shooter of all time that you are? And when they had him go last out of everyone, so they had like 5 guys go before, and so I was like, okay, is Curry going to put up like 30 points right now? And he did, dude. He stepped up. And I'm someone who likes to dump on the Warriors just because like a little NorCal SoCal rivalry, but I can always appreciate Steph and Draymond and Clay at the end of the day.
Oh yeah.
The 3-point shootout was excellent, and the skills challenge was boring per usual, in my opinion. If they could replace the skills challenge with anything, what do you think they should do it with? You ever consider that?
I never considered it, but since you asked the question, maybe like a horse type of thing. I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I'm gonna keep thinking about that. But you know, let's get into the NBA midseason report. The NBA will restart on Wednesday, March 10th. It will restart, but let's take a look back. We're gonna talk about our biggest takeaways. Who was the best team? Who was the surprising team? Who was disappointing? Who should get NBA awards? Who should win it? And everything in between. All right, so let's get right into it. The biggest takeaways from this first half of the season. For me, I really think that there's like no clear favorite to win it all. Like no clear favorite, and also the parity, the competition this year is very fierce. Going to the season, I know you especially. We assumed that the Lakers was gonna repeat, you know, after they made the moves, getting Dennis Schroeder, et cetera. But you know, the 76ers have stepped up. The Jazz have been hot, like what they won like 22 games in a row or something like that. You still got the Milwaukee Bucks to contend with. The Suns have looked fantastic under Chris Paul's leadership. So there's just a lot of parity going on. Then we have teams that were out of the playoffs last year that are stepping into the playoff picture this year. Like this year we have the New York Knicks in the picture. We have the Hornets in the picture. The Warriors are back in the picture. The Spurs are back in the picture. So it's just been great competitive basketball, and I'm expecting a competitive NBA playoffs this year. What is your biggest takeaways from this first half of the season?
I definitely agree with the parity thing. I think we saw that trend come up last year when we were at that breaking point. We're like, is Kawhi going to go to the Lakers and form a new super team, or will he go somewhere else? Kind of shocked us because we thought the Clippers were out of it, and he went to the Clippers. And then I like this bigger sense of parity that we've been seeing the last couple of years. Some of my biggest takeaways, and it kind of has to do with the Jazz too. They've probably looked like out of the best version of themselves that they could be. You know, they're probably looked the closest to the best version of themselves. I think that a big reason is because of continuity. You have a lot of the guys who've been playing in this system for a long time. I think 8 or 9 of their players were on last year's playoff team. And then they also got Bojan Bogdanovic back, who was injured all playoffs. Mike Conley had a really down year last year. I was surprised. I remember in the Lakers matchups with the Jazz, Mike Conley was just breaking open threes. He was hurt, but he was also learning a new system. So I think continuity has been a big reason that teams like the Jazz have looked pretty good. You got familiar scheme for them. They got returning players. And I think they were hit by COVID protocols a bit, but not to the point where a team like the Lakers was, where when Dennis Schroeder got hit, they went on a 4-game losing streak, because when Dennis Schroeder went out, that was a big part of our team, and he was one of our biggest offensive initiators. So thankfully, the Jazz have been able to power through that for them. They hold the top record in the NBA. I think continuity has been a big theme this year. Also, I think, going back to your parity point, it has been hard to judge who the best team is, and it's hard to kind of forecast their ceiling, because you look at a team like the Nets, who just got Harden. We have this superstar trifecta now, and they're the only team that has 3 superstars like that now. So they have a unique situation, but they haven't played that much together. We've seen a few games, and they need more time to figure it out, to figure out how good they can be. We know that the defense is lacking there, and we know that they're probably going to make a move to shore up that front court depth. But do you know how many games they played together? It's not enough for me to assess whether they can, be a clear favorite or not. And I agree. I don't think there is a total clear favorite, though. I will side with my hometown Lakers just because I saw them do it last year. And our defense, even with our best defender, Anthony Davis, being hurt all year and even being out, we're still like the number 1 ranked defense in terms of defensive rating, I believe, which has been a big plus for me, despite all the kind of up and down stuff this season. So continuity has been a big thing, but it's just hard to assess how good these teams can be because of things like COVID protocols. The season's kind of it's in a weird rhythm, but it's going to be a problem that persists for the rest of it, with battling COVID and fans coming back into the arena too. We just saw fans come back at a Knicks game. Fans have been at the Jazz games. So that's going to be a new factor coming in as well.
Yeah, let me go back to the Nets, because I've been on board saying that they must win the NBA Finals at some point. They must win it with how this team is constructed, like you just mentioned, having Kyrie, having KD, having James Harden. Now they just signed Blake Griffin. So it's an absolute must for them to win the NBA Finals. They have to. I still expect the Lakers to be in the mix and all that, but what you think of the Nets? If they all healthy and all at one, playing on one accord, do you think that they are unstoppable and the finals trophy will be theirs?
I think a team like the Lakers, when you have Anthony Davis and LeBron, I don't think you have a clear answer for how to guard them. They're not going to be able to guard AD if he gets in his playoff form from last year, where he was, just hitting jumpers left and right, hitting turnaround buzzer beaters. DeAndre Jordan's not going to shut AD down. So I think that the Nets still have to make a couple moves, and Blake Griffin was a good move for their scoring depth for sure. We'll see if he gets revitalized by being in a new situation. But they still need to make a move for the front court. And dude, if they get Drummond, I think that puts them over the top.
Because
number one, I want Drummond because we need more rebounding, blocking, and paint protection. Number 2, that plugs all their holes, man. I mean, rebounding, rim protection. If they had young DeAndre Jordan, that would be set. They'd probably be unstoppable, but they need someone else at this point. DeAndre's a little old. So Drummond's going to be a big factor in swinging, the power balance of the league.
They don't need nobody else. I think they have everything. Like, there's no excuse. When you got three great scores, like 3 great scores all time, you have no choice but to win the finals. You have absolutely no choice. So Brooklyn Nets, you are on the clock. Let's move to the next topic. The best team. We think the best team in the NBA so far. My vote is for the Jazz. You know, I love the Lakers. LeBron, my favorite player of all time, but I gotta go with the Jazz. Only 9 losses on the year. They're the only team that don't have double-digit losses. Like I mentioned before, they had like a 20-game winning streak at one point. Top 5 in offense and defense overall. Like you mentioned, having Bogdanovich back, that was key. They missed him in the playoffs. They missed his 3-point shooting, his shooting overall. Having Mike Conley healthy and Rudy Gobert, still fantastic defensive player, might win defensive player of the year. Then you have Donovan Mitchell, who, you know, is kind of underrated, but I think he's getting a lot of attention now. And Quinn Snyder, the coach, he had these guys playing great. For me, for a long time, I've been looking for the Jazz to be this type of team. They always been a playoff team. They always have surprised us in a way. Like, we never looked at the Jazz, and we don't expect much, but they always in the playoffs. But when they get to the playoffs, they always get kicked out early. And I said that last year that they need to elevate in the playoffs. They can't have these early exits. Like you mentioned before, they have continuity. These guys been together for a few years now, so something got to pop off, and maybe this is season now. So who you think, if not the Lakers, is the best team in the NBA right now?
The Jazz, I'm going to agree with you. The Jazz probably look the best, and because of the reasons we were talking about before. I think when everyone's totally healthy, I got to go with my Lakers. And I think if the Nets get Drummond, I think the Nets are the best, honestly. Drummond will plug up so many holes for them. And like we were saying, we hope that doesn't happen. What about if all the teams are totally healthy? Who do you think would be the best in a playoff series?
If all teams were totally healthy,
Yep.
I have to. You have to go with the Lakers. You got to go with the Lakers. I think the playoffs is a different animal. It's a different beast. Like regular season, yeah, you can do well and all that. Look at the Milwaukee Bucks, but when you get to the playoffs, it's just different. And you got to be.
It is.
You got to be there mentally, and I think the Lakers have the best mentality of all the playoff contending teams. So healthy. I mean, who's going to guard AD? Like my boy Mike White. Shout out to Mike. Like he would ask, who's going to guard AD? Who's going to stop LeBron? Especially LeBron. LeBron is playing, smart basketball. He's using his mind now. He's not using his body as much. Dennis Schroeder's a ball hawk. Marcus saw his intelligence, and then you have hopefully Kyle Kuzma can elevate his play a little bit more. I've been looking for him to take off, and I think they really do need Drummond. But if all of them healthy, I'm going with the Lakers number 1.
Yeah. One other thing I want to ask: what do you think of the Blake addition? How do you think he helps them? And how do you think that puts the Nets in the position that they are now?
See, this thing, I don't know. I don't know how much Blake has left in the tank. I think, like you said, offensively, he would add a little bit of punch. I like how Blake Griffin has tailored his game as he got older. He's losing, his hops, his altitude. He's not known as a dunk anymore. He had some of his best years with the Pistons as far as shooting and efficiency and all that stuff. But like defensively, I don't know where he is defensively. And that's what that's what they need the most. Even though they have 3 fantastic scorers, none of them are like fantastic defenders. They are capable, but they are not that good overall. But
they're not at the level of the Lakers defense, man.
Yeah.
We saw how good they could get. I think if Kyrie and Harden and Durant really lock down in a playoff series, I think we can get some okay defense out of the Nets, like totally motivated. But night to night, they're probably more focused on running the offense. At least that's what I've seen from a few games. That's why they've gotten some bad losses under their belt, but they've also gotten some good wins. So the Nets are such a wild card. It's hard to figure them out. It's hard to peg them down right now, especially with, their players in and out of the lineup.
Yeah. Ironically enough, they remind me of how the Suns were back in the day. that 7 seconds or less offense. They'll give you 120 points, but then they can give up 125. That's why we never seen the Suns go to the NBA Finals. They never won the championship because their defense is just not there. And, Steve Nash is at the helm, so they gotta get better on that defense though. But so we in agreement that the Jazz are the best team in the NBA right now. Right?
They look like the best team, yeah. And that's just dependent on the health of the other teams and everything, yeah.
All right, so let's move on. Who's been the most disappointing team in the NBA thus far? Who in your mind has been the most disappointing team or teams in the NBA?
I got a few actually. The Celtics, the Raptors, the Mavericks a bit, and to an extent the Bucks. So I'll go through them. The Bucks, yeah, they've had some bad losses. I think Middleton has been out, but I kind of expected them to be a little better. And I see fans kind of complaining about Brook Lopez on Twitter. I still think Brook Lopez is pretty good, though I'm not watching him night to night. I just remember seeing, the scoreboard and seeing like, oh, they lost by 15 to that team that's not in the playoffs or that's not going to be in the playoff picture. So I thought the Bucks would, take a more of a step forward. I thought Giannis's jumper would be a little more developed by now. Yeah. I think Giannis is a hard worker. I think he'll figure it out eventually. It might not be this year though, and I don't think they're going to win a championship until Giannis can get a more reliable stroke. So that's the Bucks. The Celtics. We've seen in our group chat how Jordan, our guy at Crown Hoops, has just been kind of going crazy at Kemba Walker not being able to close games and not being healthy. Celtics fans seem pretty happy with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and they're two of the best young talents in the league. Yeah, I like them a lot too, and it's hard for me to say that because they're a Celtic, but as individuals, I really like their games, and I think they're like good dudes too. But they're barely above 500, and they were below 500 for a good little while. Now, I think they closed their pre-All-Star break on a few-game winning streak, so things were looking up for them. So let's see if they'll figure it out. But I thought their record would be a little bit stronger. And the last two, the Raptors, they started off like 2-10, and I was like, Jesus, what's going on? Why are the Raptors 2-10? They just won 2 years ago. And then I was talking to my friends, and I realized, so they don't have any rim protection anymore. They don't have Marc Gasol. They don't have Serge Ibaka. Kawhi's gone. And, I'm sure injuries and stuff. I'm like, okay, that makes a little more sense. But still, I thought, Siakam would be stepping up a little more. And that's the Raptors. The Mavericks, I thought Luka and Kristaps Porzingis would be gelling a little bit more by now. I thought they'd be a little more lethal. I think Luka's carrying his weight, but it seems like Kristaps still has some stuff he's got to figure out. So those have been my most disappointing teams. What about you, man?
I've picked one out the East and one out the West. The East, I gotta go with the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks, 16-20 right now. Trae Young is doing his thing, but it seems like it's a lot of confusion in their locker room. I've been hearing things about John Collins, him might getting traded, him moving on. In free agency, he's supposed to be the number one rated power forward entering free agency. It seemed like things got dicey ever since they landed Clint Capella in that big trade that happened before the deadline. They just fired Lloyd Pierce, coach. So I don't know where they're going. I was expecting them to be more competitive just because I believe in the young pieces they have. I like John Collins. I think he's underrated. Of course, Trae Young, he's a fantastic player. I think Clint Capella, double-double machine, and they have some young guys, sprinkled in there. But overall, just been disappointing. And what happened to Rondo? I don't know what happened to Rondo. Maybe
he's regular season Rondo, man. We saw it. It's not playoff Rondo. That's not Rondo yet. If they do find themselves in a first-round series, though, expect Rondo to be there,
If they get there. Oh, my goodness. Man.
Yeah, but now that you bring up the Hawks, I'm kind of in agreement with you because they made a lot of moves. Didn't they get Bogdan Bogdanovic?
Yeah.
Got Danilo Gallinari.
Yeah.
People are kind of, like, oh, is this the new young team out east? But they have underperformed a bit. And it's that chemistry seemed to be coming into play. I heard there's some rift between Trae Young and John Collins. So I would also add them to my list too.
And in the West, I got the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets. That right now they're 20. Sorry, Matt Huff. So right now they're 21-15. I just thought their record would be a lot better. Coming into the season, I was very high on the Denver Nuggets after their performance in the playoffs, coming back down from 3-1 twice, and was a little bit competitive with the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. Jokic, I knew Jokic was going to be fantastic. Murray, I want to see a little bit more from Murray. I know he had some few games here and there, but I want to see a little more from him. I've been disappointed in, even though I think the COVID protocols had something to do with it, Michael Porter Jr., his impact overall hasn't been felt yet. Bobo, I thought he was going to develop a little more. I haven't really heard much about him. And also the other complementary pieces stepping up. There's not much there. Paul Millsap, maybe age is affecting him. And, they still in the playoff picture, and there's still plenty of time. And all you got to do, you got to just be hot. You just got to be hot entering the playoffs. That's what every sport. But them right now being 21-15, that's disappointing to me. I thought they'll be more so at the top of the West. I thought they'll be in the place where the Suns are. So that's my team in the West, the Denver Nuggets. What you think about them?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. And the old questions about Murray, come around again. We saw in the bubble, he is capable of going crazy in the playoffs like that. Because the year before, I think he also did pretty well in the playoffs. But night to night, being a 25-point-a-game scorer, that's what was the next step for him to take that, that star leap. And I think before the All-Star game went down, I was reading that Murray was kind of heating up again. So if they can carry that momentum into the second half, then they'll be on the right track. But Jokic has been amazing, though. He's averaging, I think, like 27 a game, and also, like around 10 boards, around 10 assists. So he's been amazing for them. And Jokic can be kind of up and down sometimes. Sometimes when the Lakers have played him in the past, I know I kind of view everything through a Lakers lens, but that's just my favorite team. Sometimes when he's played the Lakers in the past, he's kind of gone passive. And I wonder, why is Jokic not being a little more, getting his own shot, being more offensively aggressive? He's just a pass-first guy. That's what kind of got him really into passing in the first place. And I think he's had to learn how to be more of the team's main scorer. So it's just a learning process for them, though. They're still pretty young. A guy like Gary Harris for them has been injured. And I know he's a crucial, especially defensively, role player for them. So it's another team that has, gotten their rhythm interrupted by injuries. And another thing we didn't mention was the shorter offseason playing a role. And, it seems like a lot of guys are just getting hurt this year.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll heat up a little bit more. Hopefully Murray will be there. All right, so let's go to the other side of the spectrum here. Let's put some smiles on people's faces. The surprising teams in the NBA. My surprise team right now is the New York Knicks. Right now they're in the driver's seat to make the playoffs. I think they're like 18-16 or something like that. Julius Randle has been putting up MVP type numbers. Nah, he's not my MVP candidate. Don't get it twisted, everybody. But his numbers been putting up. He leads them in points, rebounds, and assists. This was surprising to me. I just looked this up. They're number one overall in defense as far as opponents' points per game with 104.4. And even though that might be surprising because this the Knicks, and we just love to take a crap on the Knicks every chance we get. They have Tom Thibodeau as their head coach, and he's a defensive-minded head coach. He always have great defensive teams. Now, on the other side of that, here again with Tom Thibodeau, the lack of offense is getting the Knicks in trouble. That's why their record is not better than it should be. But overall, for them being in the playoff picture right now, and then R.J. Barrett still developing and everything, I like the way that they're going right now. I thought they was going to be a playoff team in the next couple years, but it seemed like it's starting this year. So who's your surprise team right now in the NBA?
Two of them. The Knicks was one of them. And I love seeing Julius Randle flourish, man. Out of all the young Laker guys, he was my favorite. I just liked his, aggressive ass, bull in a china shop style. I love seeing him in transition, just so much muscle, just with so much speed, kind of like LeBron. But I love seeing him. Yeah, not in every facet. In terms of size and speed and transition, it just gave me a LeBron kind of effect. Seeing him step up to be like a mid-20s points per game scorer, that's great to see. And seeing him like become so beloved in a big city like New York, I like to crap on the Knicks too, but the NBA is better when the Knicks are good.
Oh yeah.
And Knicks fans have something to be happy about. But hey, in the meantime, we'll take the jokes too. Another team has been the Charlotte Hornets, man. Gordon Hayward's having a little bit of a renaissance. LaMelo Ball has looked like a certified NBA baller out there. They got a lot to be happy about right now. Terry Rozier is doing his thing too. Malik Monk, I believe, as well. He's doing some really good things out there too. So the Charlotte Hornets were another surprise team for me as well, man.
Oh yeah. I like the way they're playing. I mentioned this before about the Hornets. I didn't know where they were going exactly because I know they got a lot of young guys, a lot of talented guys too, but I was worried about them putting it all together. But it looks like they're going to the right direction. So shout out to them.
Because it could be like an Atlanta Hawks situation where you have a lot of talent, but they're just not vibing. But the Hornets seem to have good chemistry and they're vibing. So happy for them.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into the NBA awards. Now it's time to start talking about it a little more. I think we can skip Rookie of the Year. I think we can skip that. I think everybody's in agree who's going to be Rookie of the Year. Sixth Man of the Year, we can skip that too. I think we all agree who's going to be Sixth Man of the Year. There's 3 awards that they're going to be like up for grabs. I want to get into Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, and obviously MVP. Defensive Player of the Year, right now I have Ben Simmons. I think it's time to recognize Ben Simmons as a great defender. Every time he guards, one of the best guards on the team, they don't do well against him. And his defensive prowess is leading the charge right now for the Philadelphia 76ers, who are number 1 in the East right now. I know we've been talking about the Brooklyn Nets, but right now, number 1 in the driver's seat is the 76ers. And I think it's time to give his due. We give him a lot of crap for his jump shooting and how he hasn't evolved, especially offensively. People think he's plateaued, but this man is a fantastic player, can do it all. I always said, I don't know if you're going to like this, and I always said he was like LeBron light, like a B version of LeBron.
No, I agree with that. I mean, just the passing and the speed and just the aggressiveness that he can play with sometimes. I agree with that too. Yeah, I think Ben Simmons has a chance to win it. Number 1, because of voter fatigue with Rudy Gobert, although he still tends to show up in the top rankings. Like last year, I think he finished 2nd in Defensive Player of the Year voting. But what I like about a defender is when they can guard a whole bunch of positions in different areas. Gobert can kind of do that too. He's gotten better at keeping up on the perimeter with guys. But Ben's always doing it. And despite the offense being up and down and the scouting report adjusting to him, his defense has always been pretty good. So I think it might be Ben's time to win that award too. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Time for Ben Simmons to shine. Let's go, Ben. All right, Coach of the Year. There's a lot of coaches that could be Coach of the Year.
This is a hard one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a hard one. Right now, I got 2. Obviously, Quinn Snyder. He's leading everybody. Best record, Jazz. I do want to give a shout out to Monty Williams out there in Phoenix. The Suns are number 2. Number 2 in the West.
Mm-hmm.
I repeat, number 2 in the West. We was talking about the Lakers. We was talking about the Nuggets. Talking about the Clippers. Everybody was talking about the Warriors making a comeback. But who's number 2? The Suns. And Monty Williams is, we seen them in the bubble when they went 8-0 in the bubble, and we all expect them to take a jump, but I didn't expect them to go number 2. So I got Quinn Snyder and Monty Williams right there. Anybody in your Coach of the Year race?
I would say those 2, and I would also say Thibodeau, who, we were just singing the praises of the Knicks earlier, but hey, Thibodeau showed up, and they have an over 500 record. Team seems to like him too. I think he should be worthy of consideration as well. Yeah.
All right, Thibodeau, you're in a running. Congratulations to you. All right, so MVP. Here's the fun with MVP. Do you have LeBron as your MVP? Do you have LeBron?
I have right now. I just want to say I'm one of those people who thinks these awards shouldn't count for only the regular season. And if we do want to have a regular season award, let's have a playoff award as well for things like defensive player of the playoffs or defensive player or MVP of the playoffs. I believe they do it in hockey. I got frustrated with it last year because I thought Giannis, he obviously kind of choked in the second round there, but I also didn't like seeing him not take on the defensive assignment of guarding Jimmy Butler when he was killing the Bucks. And I'm like, why is the defensive player of the year not being thrown on Jimmy? And his response was that, that wasn't in the coach's plan. I listened to the coach. Still, I would have liked to see the crown defensive player of the year, try his hand at stopping Jimmy Butler with your season on the line. I'd like it for the awards to represent the whole year. I think it would just, bring weight to them more because a player is often talked about based on what they did in the playoffs anyways. So we're just always in this argument loop of, he was the MVP, but like he didn't do it in the playoffs. So I think it'd make it easier for all of us if we could either just make the whole award encompass the playoffs too, or if there was a playoff MVP. But that said, with the current rules, I think probably got to go with Embiid. I would have gone with LeBron maybe if they recently had that 4-game losing streak, and a lot of things go into it, fatigue and whatnot. The Lakers not having Dennis Schroeder, who they lost to COVID protocols. I think if LeBron ended up putting up some amazing games during that streak, and if they got a couple wins off, they lost a couple close ones. They lost by 2 to the Wizards. They lost a close one to the Heat as well. If LeBron put up some big performances, I think he'd be even with Embiid. But I do think there is still time for it to be a close race. But I think Embiid's the clear favorite right now because, number one record in the East, averaging like 30 a game. He's hit some game winners. I think he had a really good game against Gobert, who everyone is always putting him in the top of defensive player of the year category. I think Embiid's, he's got a healthy lead right now in the MVP race.
Oh man, I don't know where to go with MVP. LeBron got the name, but I think Embiid is more deserving of the MVP. Like you said, number one in the East. He's averaging 30 in an era now where it's all about, the wings. It's all about the point guard. We have a center who's leading the charge. And I just think that he deserves it more than LeBron. I do agree with what you were saying. If the Lakers were winning a little bit more at the point where AD has been missing games, LeBron would clearly be in the front as far as the MVP. But I got to go with Embiid. And the one thing that I see that would knock down Embiid is the marketability. Like, I don't know if NBA wants to market a center in this day and age as their MVP. That's the only thing that I can see. But as far as numbers and impact and where the team is, he deserves it. Do want to give a shout out to Jokic.
He's my dark horse guy. Yeah. But the record is just not up to par with the Sixers.
Yeah. And also I want to give a shout out to Dame too. Because when CJ McCollum has been out, Dame has kept this team afloat, and then they are in the playoff picture right now. So I want to give a shout out to Dame as well. And also Steph Curry. But I think it's going to be a little bit hard for Steph and Dame to win the MVP, especially Curry, if the Warriors find themselves out of the regular playoff picture outside of the play-in games.
Yeah. Going back to LeBron real quick, I do want to acknowledge I think he is having a really amazing year. It's been an up and down situation with AD being out, and he's been the constant for the Lakers. I mean, if we want to get down to the essence of the award, most valuable, I feel like if we just really emphasize the valuable, LeBron would win it all the time. Part of that's because the makeups of the teams that he's on, because they're usually all built around his strengths. And when he's not there, it's just a bunch of confused role players, Although this year's Lakers, I think, are a little deeper than that. But particularly defensively, I think LeBron's done a really good job. Coming into the season, we were running, shorter off season. We know LeBron likes to pace himself. What's he going to look like at the beginning of the year? And I think he's come out really aggressive, and he's defended pretty well. I mean, he'll take a first quarter off. He'll, kind of size up the competition, get guys going. But for the most part, he's been doing really well on defense. And when he tries, his rotations are always tight. He doesn't foul. He takes charges. I think he's probably a defensive player of the year dark horse. I was looking at some rankings. They have him around 4th, 5th, that 3rd range. If AD comes back and the team really, its strengths really start to shine, I think we might see some more LeBron defensive player of the year buzz. I think he's probably going to make an all defense team, actually.
Oh, yeah, he should this year. He definitely should. All right, so let's get to one of my favorite parts of the show, the fun time segment. This time I don't have one specific thing like I usually have. I'm just going to hit you with like random questions on the spot. Have a little time to think about. Are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, question number 1 is true or false? We kind of talked about this already, but I want to get a definitive answer from you. True or false? Blake Griffin makes the Nets prohibitive favorites to win the NBA Finals.
Oh, false. They still have their weaknesses. He's still not going to help him out defensively, which is what you were mentioning. He'll provide some. If KD's out some more time, you have another offensive initiator in Blake, who still, has some pretty good fundamentals and tools to get guys going and also be a good finisher as a roll man in the pick and roll. So maybe we'll see some dunks out of him, but the Nets still have those weaknesses they got to address. So we're going false on that one.
All right, false. Question number 2. If you had to choose one player to start a franchise with, who would you choose? Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Luka Doncic, or Nikola Jokic? And choose wisely. I'm listening.
Oh, that's a good question. I might go with. I think I got to go with Luka.
Luka.
Yep.
Why Luka?
Luka, just because of all, his ability to initiate. I mean, he reminds me of LeBron with much less athleticism, but his ability to facilitate and just his IQ. Yeah, no, a lot of. I think Luka would be amazing to start a franchise with. I'm mad that the Hawks passed on him, because seeing Luka, do damage there, that would have been amazing. But I do like Trae Young, and I still think he can be a great guy. And then I think I'd go Jokic second, just because his ability to pass and also his continued ability as a scorer continually improving. So I think those would be my top 2 guys. But I do got love for Jason Tatum and Brown, though, too.
Yeah, I'm sticking up for my boy Jason Tatum, St. Louis stand-up. Starting a franchise with Jason Tatum. Nothing needs more to be said. Jason Tatum, let's go. All right. Number three. All right, so the Hall of Fame inductees have been, well, not the inductees, but the candidates have been announced. And 2 names have stuck out. Should Chris Bosh and Paul Pierce get in on the first try?
Oh, that's a good question. Who are the other people that are on the ballot?
We still have people like Ben Wallace is on the ballot. Bill Russell as a coach is on the ballot. There's women's players. I don't have all the names completely, but those are a couple players. And Chris Webber is still on the ballot too as well.
Chris Webber's on the ballot, okay. And so they've all tried and they didn't get in yet.
Yeah, they didn't. Well, Ben Wallace and Chris Webber hasn't gotten in yet.
I think Paul's definitely going to get in. He won that title for the Celtics. I think Chris Bosh is also. I think they both deserve to get in first try. Honestly, if they're going against Chris Webber and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I think they're both been important players over the years, and Chris Bosh also was a big part of the Heat. They don't win those series if they don't have a guy like Bosh in there, who did the sacrifices, did what he had to do to get the win. It's not as surefire as like Dwayne Wade, but I think they should both probably deserve to get in first try.
Yeah. Also, I do want to say I think Ben Wallace deserves to get in Hall of Fame. 4 straight Defensive Player of the Year awards. There's nothing else to be said about that. All right, bonus question. Well, not a bonus question, bonus statement. I want you to right now make a short pitch of why Andre Drummond should sign with the Lakers. And go.
Andre, if you sign with the Lakers, it is a guaranteed title. I know you're in a weird place in your career because you're on this path of, I'm a young talented player. I have amazing capabilities in rebounding and scoring. And I put up some really dominant performances, but credibility has kind of fluctuated throughout your career. People haven't always respected you as a championship caliber player. That would instantly be solved. And not only that, but if you sign with us long term, being paired next to AD, no one would ever score a bucket in the paint again. It would literally be a 10-year streak of no one getting a dunk. So I think you and AD long term would be an amazing pairing. So I don't see why there's any other choice, actually. I'll be there. I'll drive you to the El Segundo practice facility. I'll set it up with Rob. And it's going to be great, man. Just let me know when you want me to pick you up.
There we go, Andre. You heard it. Come to the Lakers. Come on to LA. Let's go. All right. So to end off the episode, I always dedicate time to the fan inside my guests. And we're going to talk about the Lakers here. Are you satisfied with where the Lakers are at the half point of the season?
I'd say overall I am satisfied, yeah, because we got some games out of AD, but I think what was kind of on my mind was AD didn't look like he wanted to be out there. I don't know if it was health or if it was mental, but, sometimes you need a mental health break. I think AD was looking like he needed one of those. He just wasn't the same championship level player that we were seeing defending the paint and, asserting his will on guys. I'm glad that AD is getting this month off because I think he really needed it. I'm impressed with LeBron's ability to go hard every night and just do his job every freaking night. And a lot of nights when people are saying, oh, you got the Wizards tonight, why don't you just take it off? He says no. And the Wizards ended up beating us anyways. But I'm impressed with a lot of things about the guys. Kuzma's ability to develop into a guy that does a lot more dirty work now, because before we were just pegging him as a scorer, but his ability to get big rebounds, to hustle, play really good wing defense, that's all amazing. And we got him for a pretty good deal too. Dennis Schroeder, I think, is a great piece too for us. He's got that bully ball mentality too. Really great perimeter defender. I like the development of THT Caruso. I like to see things on the bright side, technically. I mean, in most cases, but there are definitely things we got to work on. The 3-point shooting is a little concerning because we start off hot and then you think, oh, they'll get going, but it hasn't gotten totally picked up yet. We might need to get a shoot off the buyout market. I think we have enough. Guys just need to hit their shots because they're generating good looks by people like LeBron, people like Schroeder, but they just got to hit them, man. It's just a make or miss league, as they always say.
Yeah, but I think for what it's worth, the Lakers are in a good spot. I would say I was kind of taken aback of how AD was playing. Now, 22 points per game, that's crazy that we think of AD that highly, where 22 points per game is like, what are you doing?
Garbage for him.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing out there? I thought he was going to be an MVP caliber player this year. He's capable of that. I always said that the torch slowly should be passed to Anthony Davis from LeBron. This is LeBron twilight years, if you want to call it that, even though he's playing at a high level. He's still averaging, his career average right now or close to it. But it should have been AD definitely in the driver's seat. But I think that he'll get it together. Dennis Schroeder, fantastic pickup. That's one of the things I was concerned with the Lakers a couple years ago. Do they have that point guard that could take the pressure off LeBron, creating? We saw that having Rondo was a plus, but then they lost Rondo. But them getting Dennis Schroeder is a perfect setup. And from what it's worth, looked like an upgrade. Of course, Montrezl Harrell, him providing energy, productive minutes at times. Kyle Kuzma. I still want him to develop into that third scorer on the team, but
he's got it in him.
Yeah, he has it in him. But I also like THT. I like how he plays. He plays hard, and hopefully he can keep developing and getting more minutes. But I am concerned. One thing I was concerned with to start the season for the Lakers is them losing a lot of speed and athleticism in the front court. Not having JaVale, not having Dwight. Even though Dwight's older, the length and athleticism gave teams problems, and Lakers were a big matchup problem for most of the teams last year in the NBA. Them having Marc Gasol, even though he's a fantastic player, fantastic defensive player. Use his mind, intelligent. He's slow. He's prone to injury. AD
Yeah.
has to work himself back when he comes back. They're very thin at this spot now. I've been hearing that they've been, looking in that buyout market. They might bring JaVale back in. I really think they should go after Andre Drummond. I think if they get Andre Drummond, it is almost a wrap. Lakers to win the championship. I'm gonna ask you, in order for the Lakers to repeat, do you think they need somebody like Andre Drummond or even JaVale McGee on the team?
It's a really interesting question. I've been asking myself that a lot too. Actually, we can't get JaVale back because of something in the CBA, because we got rid of him last year. There has to be at least 1 year after a trade. I think we traded him technically. So basically, it has to be over a year until we can bring someone like JaVale back, who was previously on the team. But I'm glad you brought that up about the front court, because that's been a big source of my frustrations this season. Outside of the three-point shooting, it's been our inability to just bully guys in the paint like we did with Dwight and JaVale. And I loved last year's team for having Dwight, a guy who we can throw on Jokic to just have some minutes to harass him in the playoffs, and also just to do work against smaller teams. But a big reason we haven't been as potent in the front court is because AD has been hurt. I think we might have enough to still repeat if AD gets healthy, because when it comes down to it, AD is going to be at the 5 in these, in these late series crunch time lineups. And if we get that defensive player of the year worthy version of him again, he's going to be the 5 on the floor, not Mark. Mark might put in some good minutes in the first and third quarter in the series. But just for my peace of mind, I think we should get another big man. And what do you think of Damian Jones? Let me ask, the guy we signed off a 10-day.
I like him as a defensive presence. I think, that's what the Lakers need. They don't need nobody else to score the ball. They just need somebody to grab them boards, play good defense, read and react very well. And I like him as a young prospect. And of course, it's going to take him time. But, even though they have him, I still think having Andre Drummond would just set everything off.
I know I'm trying to talk myself into it, but I'm also keeping in mind that it would require a buyout, which kind of requires Andre to surrender some salary out of his $28 million that he's owed or something like that. And I think it's tough for the Cavs too, from their perspective. So they're still looking for a trade partner. I think they really don't want to buy him out, from the Cavs perspective. So, I would love to have Drummond, but I actually like Damian Jones' skill set. He's a lob threat. He can block shots. If we got him, he'd be super cheap. He'd just be big man insurance. We would sign him for the rest of the year if he kept performing well. I like a guy like his skill set, because that's something we've been missing. Just some size, battle for rebounds, protect the paint, get some lobs. It's not much, it's just cleanup crew kind of stuff. But that's something we were really missing with no JaVale and no Dwight.
Yeah, that's what they need. Somebody to clean it up. Well, that was the end of Stacey on Sports, the comeback show, NBA midseason review. We still Lakers to a high standard. Out of LA, Mateo, thank you for coming on to the show. I really appreciate your insight and everything. Give your social media, plug your social media. Where can people find you at?
Sure thing. You can find me on Twitter at MateoNav53. And then you can also find our YouTube show, Save the Lakers, on YouTube. So we do game recaps and we cover big news related to the Lakers. You can find stuff there. Thanks for having me on, man. Really had a good time.
All right. Thank you. All right. That was the end of SOS Stacey on Sports. See you next time.